Hey yo, welcome back to another ballistics gel test. Today we're going to be doing something we've never done on the channel before. We're not shooting factory loaded ammo. Today we're going to be shooting component bullets from North Fork. And I've got two different weights here. I've got 165 and 180 grain in .308 caliber. We're going to be loading these into the 30-06 cartridge, shooting them into ballistics gel, comparing them to each other, and seeing how they do against some of the best factory ammo I've tested so far. And here is the box that those North Fork bullets come in. This is their 165 grain semi-Spitzer bullet right here. I almost said load. Let's go ahead and pull it out and take a look. You know what? I'm going to pull out a 180 and 165 to show you what they look like side by side, but they come in a little plastic packaging. Pull that out. All their bullets are set into a little foam block. It's kind of nice for reloading purposes. If you had this set on your bench, you can just pull one out one at a time. Got a little cardboard thing on the bottom there. I actually like the packaging. And here's what they look like out of the packaging right here. This is the 165. It's got a little exposed lead tip. Here's the 180. It's just a little bit longer, more or less the same bullet. And these are bonded bullets, y'all. And it does say as much right here on the box, premium bonded bullets, made in Sweden. Here is their website if you want to check them out. So it'll be really interesting to see how these compare to like a Federal Fusion in 30-06. And here are a few of the loaded cartridges. These are the 165s. The 180 loaded cartridges look exactly the same. I made them the same overall length. Appearance-wise, they're exactly the same. I loaded these in non-fired Remington brass with Remington primers. That's what I had. And for various reasons we don't need to get into, I'm not going to go over the specific load data that I used to load these cartridges. What I did was load up a pretty stout hunting load. It is not at the highest end. It's far from the bottom end in terms of power. Sort of about 75% of the way to the top. And that would be easily replicable if you wanted to load some of these up yourself. So let's go shoot them and see how they do. And also, I almost forgot to add, with these bullets, I got this little flyer here, a little informational sheet. You flip it over, and it's got right here some info on North Fork bullets. You can stop, pause, and read that if you would like to. And then it just goes over each of the different bullet types that they offer. These ones that we'll be shooting out of the 30-06 are the semi-Spitzer. So we'll read this real quick. Designed to be the best possible combination of bonded lead bullet and copper solid, a bullet which mushrooms perfectly and penetrates deep. We will see how true that is. And the test rifle today is going to be my Tikka T3X Superlight Stainless, chambered in 30-06, of course. It's got a 22.4 inch barrel. And up top, we've got a Leupold VX3 HD 4.5 to 14 by 40 scope. And coming on back, I've got to show you, I've got one of my handmade leather cartridge cuffs. Check out my website, masonleather.com, to get yourself one. I would love to make you one. I've also got one of my Latigo leather slings on there. And coming around to the other side, I've got to show you my elk design. We'll be taking 3 shots from 100 yards, firing into 10% ballistics gel that has been calibrated to meet the FBI's ballistics testing protocol. And while ballistics gel isn't an exact proxy for big game, it does provide a repeatable medium through which to test various bullets and ammo against each other. After the shots, we'll examine bullet expansion, weight retention, penetration, and velocity. My goal is to provide hunters like you and I with the most objective information possible to help us make the best choice for our particular hunting situation. The ballistics gel in this video has been sourced from Clear Ballistics. You can find a link in the description. So let's go ahead and shoot it. And let's check out the velocity for those 165 grain North Fork bullets out of the 30-06. Our high velocity was 2749. Our low was 2732. And our average was 2741, I think that said. Very tight spread on those hand loads. And let's take a look at the velocities for those North Fork 180 grain bullets, the hand load, out of the 30-06. See if I can get my camera to focus. It is super bright outside. The high velocity was 2645. I hope you're seeing this. The low is 2594, it looks like, and the average is 2614. And here we are down at the blocks after shooting both the 165 grain on the left and 180 grain on the right North Fork SS bullets out of the 30-06. Let's take a look at the 165s first here on the left. And first we'll go ahead and look at the first block here. Nice and clear, brand new block for you guys. It looks like we had rapid expansion starting at about the 1.5 inch mark going on back, and this is the path from 3 bullets in different parts of the block. That's not one bullet that did all that. Going back to about the 11 inch mark is where it starts to taper off. That would put a hurting on whatever you shoot with it. Coming on back, we captured all 3 bullets fired, and penetration and expansion were just excellent. The shallowest bullet right here is at 24 inches, a full 2 feet of penetration. The next one is about 26 inches, and the deepest is 28 inches. And I don't know if you guys can see, but the expansion on these is absolutely beautiful. And we'll dig these out and take a look at them in a minute, but for now, let's go look at the 180s. All right, so over here at the 180s, we'll take a look at the first block. Expansion was also very rapid, starting at about, it looks like a little bit deeper, more like the, well, no, about the 1 3/4, 1.5 inch mark, going all the way back to about the 11 or 12 inch mark, and it starts to taper off. Sorry about all the grass and stuff on this block. These 180s, for whatever reason, absolutely flung this front block around. Every shot I had to run back down here and pick this thing up off the ground. The 180s absolutely slammed the blocks. I don't know why, but the 165s didn't do it nearly as much. And let's take a look at penetration, and I captured all 3 bullets. I fired the first bullet and it zinged out of the block, but I fired 3 more for you guys. And right here, it looks like we got about 25.5 inches. This one is at about, it's after 26, about 26.5 at the front of it. And then the third one right there is about the 27.5 inch mark. So right about the same as the 165s actually. Penetration is extremely similar for both bullet weights. And also like the 165s, it looks like we have absolutely beautiful and perfect expansion, and the bullets maintained their directional path through the gel. They kept that direction with the mushrooms facing forward. So I'll go ahead and dig these out and we can weigh them up, measure them, and talk about it. And here we are looking at those North Fork 308 caliber bullets as fired from the 30-06. We've got the 165 grainers on top and the 180s on bottom. And as per usual, first we're going to talk about weight retention. For the 165s, we saw 164, 165, and 165 for an average of about 165 grains retained weight. And that is 100% weight retention, absolutely amazing. And for the 180s, we saw 178, 179, and 179 for an average of about 179 grains. That works out to 99% weight retention, right there with the 165's incredible performance. And then on to expansion. For the 165's, we saw 0.66 inches, 0.66 inches, and 0.72 inches for an average of 0.68 inches expanded diameter. That works out to 2.2x expansion. And for the 180's, we saw 0.64, 0.69, and 0.69 for an average of 0.67 inches for the same 2.2x expansion. And at the end of the video, when I do my final thoughts segment, I will be comparing both of these loads to the most similar and best performing factory loads that I have fired so far. It's going to be compared to Federal Fusion in both 165 and 180 grains, so stay tuned for that at the end of the video. On to velocity, the 165s were loaded to 2,749 feet per second as the high velocity, 2732 for the low, for an average of 2741. And of course, there's no build velocity to compare these two, as these were hand loads. But what I will say is that these velocities are nearly identical to the Federal Fusion 165 grain 30-06 load from the same rifle. So these are right there with factory ammo velocities. And then for the 180s, we saw a high of 2645, a low of 2594, for an average of 2614. Once again, no factory build velocity to compare to, but what I will say once again is that these velocities were nearly identical to the Federal Fusion 180 grain factory load, which I think makes for a very good comparison. On to penetration. For the 165s, we saw 24 inches, 26 inches, and 28 inches for an average of 26 inches of penetration. And for the 180s, we got just a hair more on average, but it was really right in there in the same range. 25.5, 26.5, and 27.5 inches for an average of 26.5 inches of penetration. And kinetic energy wise for the 165s, with a 165 grain bullet going on average 2,741 feet per second, that works out to 2,752 foot-pounds of energy. And for the 180 grain bullet going on average 2,614 feet per second, that works out to a very similar 2,731 foot-pounds of energy. Alright y'all, it's time for my final thoughts on those North Fork 308 caliber SS bullets, both the 165 and the 180 grain. Now the first thing I want to do is go ahead and reread off of their flyer what their semi-Spitzer bullets are supposed to do. That way we can look at that as a lens to evaluate their performance by. So I'll go ahead and read that verbatim. Designed to be the best possible combination of a bonded lead bullet and copper solid, a bullet which mushrooms perfectly and penetrates deeply. I think they hit that right on the head. They absolutely nailed their sort of mission statement with this bullet as per the performance that we saw. So with both bullets, the 165 and the 180, phenomenal performance across the board, incredible weight retention, essentially 100% across the board, 99% with the 180s, whoop-de-doo. Expansion was really good, 2.2x for both bullet weights. Now it's not quite as explosive of expansion as we see with some other bullets in 30-06, but it's still really good. It's above that 2x mark that I like to see, and it more than made up for it in its penetrative capability. And like with anything, there's trade-offs. If you want to get that deep penetration, you can't have just massive expansion. I think these bullets really hit the mark right there in the middle of the road with great expansion and incredible penetration, which matches sort of their mission statement for the bullet. Velocity-wise, again, these are hand loads. We more or less, sort of by chance, duplicated factory loads for both 165 and 180 grain out of 30-06 almost perfectly. The velocities were near identical matches to the respective bullet weight loads in Federal Fusion, which is a perfect segue into comparing both of these bullets' performance directly to Federal Fusion. Now with the 165 grain bullet, we had better weight retention than Fusion, a little bit less expansion, but much deeper penetration. And I've actually pulled out my note cards for the Federal Fusion load. So let's go ahead and look at that right now. We can compare apples to apples right here. So the Federal Fusion 165 grain load out of the 30-06, I'm reading these off of my notes right here. We had 97% weight retention compared to the North Fork 100% weight retention. It's both way up there, but the North Fork did beat it. Expansion, the Fusion was 2.7x, massive expansion for the Federal Fusion 165 and 30-06. The North Fork 2.2x, more controlled expansion, but we beat it on penetration. The North Fork 165 penetrated to 26 inches versus the Federal Fusion 165 of just a hair over 20 inches. So if you're looking for a 30-06 bullet, a 308 caliber bullet to load into a 30-06, and of course they would work in other 30 caliber loads, 308, etc. This is just the ticket, these North Fork bullets. If you want deeper penetration as opposed to massive expansion, I think these North Fork SS bullets are the way to go. Same story with the 180s, let's go over it. Again, identical velocity to Federal Fusion factory loads. We saw a little bit less expansion, 2.2x versus, let me flip it around here, the Federal Fusion 180 was 2.6x, so a little bit less expansion on the North Fork. Better weight retention, 99% versus 98%. It's almost identical. But again, that penetration is what makes it up there. For the North Fork bullet, we got 26.5 inches of penetration with the 180s. The Federal Fusion 180 out of 30-06 was, again, just a hair over 20 inches, identical almost to the 165. So all in all, I think these North Fork semi-Spitzer bullets in 308 caliber are an excellent component that reloaders can use to more or less duplicate and even exceed Federal Fusion factory performance. And also remember, the loads that I made were just what I cooked up. You could absolutely load them a bit hotter, get higher velocity, and some of these metrics might change a little bit. But all in all, I was actually kind of floored by the performance of these things. I think they did excellent across the board. I am very pleased. And if you'd like to get into some of them, check out their website, northforkbullets.com. They have a dealer locator on there. go there, look for a dealer in your area or online, and you can get yourself a hold of some of these North Fork bullets. I think these 308 caliber ones are the ticket. And check out my website, masonleather.com, and get yourself some leather gear handmade by me just for you. I've been handcrafting leather gear for hunters for over a decade, and I would love to make you something. And there are hundreds of reviews on my website, so you can see what real hunters have to say about their Mason leather gear. And also tons of photos showing all the customizable options, including name, initial, and caliber stamping, as well as wild game designs and more. Everything is handmade by me right here in the USA. I would love to be a part of your hunt through my leather gear. And it helps support this channel, so I can bring you more hunting ammo ballistics gel tests, and lots of other cool stuff in the future. The link will be in the video description and the pinned comment, or you can just type masonleather.com into your web browser, and click one of these cards for more hunting ammo ballistics gel tests.